All right, today I'm gonna show you guys step by step how I test my reef tank. Today guys, I'm gonna show you what I do to test my 250-gallon system. Before I get started, just give you a quick couple of ideas about how I do things. I usually test once a week. I test pretty much at the same time every day. So when I test, it's usually 1:30 in the afternoon. And I just try to keep a regular test schedule. One thing I definitely like to do is record my results every time I get them. I used to just use a notebook and write them down. I actually went ahead and did download the Reef Trace app. So I've been using that to just record stuff on my phone, and then it does give you a nice graphic readout on there so you can kind of see trends over whichever time frame you set on there. What we're going to be doing is I'll show you every test kit that I use on a weekly basis. I'll show you step by step how to use that test kit, and then we'll see what results my tank is showing and what my tank's running at as of today. Alright guys, so the first test we're going to show is the Hanna Salini checker, one of my favorites, really super simple. Some of the key things about it is you just have to make sure you keep it clean, rinse off after use, and just store it clean. And then also another thing that I do is just use the calibration fluid. I use it like once every month or 2 months. It's really cheap. It's $1 per packet on BRS. So just pick, you can see I pick a bunch of those up when I do an order. But otherwise, as you'll see, just really convenient. You power it on, and I'll show you a test on a few of the tanks here. So first, we can just see the 250. I'm just starting the light cycle on it. That's why it's not all the way full. But you can see it gives you a pretty quick readout there. You let it settle. The tank's a little cold because I don't have a heater in there. Again, just getting the beginning of the cycle going. So we're getting 1.025 on the salinity, and it's about 73 degrees. That temp might adjust for a little while, but it's pretty good. Doesn't have to be exact, there's nothing in there. Let's go check out the actual tank and the system. All this water is connected, so we'll check the frag system here. It's gonna be...
There's a glare. 1.027. 76.77.
Yeah, let's try to get it over here. How's that? This is in the actual display tank.
A little,
yeah, 1.027. A little salty. Oh, 126. Let's go rinse it off, put it away. I'm gonna record those numbers. We ended up on 1.026 and 77.3 degrees. Just rinse that in some RO water. Always clean it dry too. All right guys, test number 2. Probably what everyone considers the most important thing to check with your aquarium, that's alkalinity. You can see again, I'm using the Hanna checker. You'll see I use several of those. The thing I like about them, the digital checkers, is I don't think it's necessarily more accurate than any of the box tests out there. I think it's just more consistent in its reading than we can be with the naked eye. So I like the consistency on the reading end, and I just try to be consistent as I can with the mixing part of it. So let's go ahead and get started with the alkalinity test here. It's probably the most simple of the Hanna test, other than the Salini probe, which you just stick in the water. So let's power it on. You can see the first thing it'll ask for is C1 or sample 1. In this particular test, we're going to do 10 milliliters. Now the cuvettes are marked with a 10 cc or 10 ml mark. But I find for consistency's sake that I just like to draw up 10 cc's into a syringe, and that way I know I'm getting exactly that same 10 cc amount instead of the variable amounts, again, with the naked eye. So let me go get 10 cc's out of the tank, and then we'll proceed with the test here. All right, so as you can see, I have my 10 cc's I pulled right out of the display tank. We'll go ahead and fill that. It pretty much gets up to that standardized line they have there. I always close and then give it kind of the old glasses cleaning. Make sure it's nice and clean. And then I think it might have been Fish of Hex that recommended, I always orient the cuvette in the same direction. So I put the 10 ml marking towards the front. Okay, we'll run that first sample. While that's happening, I pull up the test solution, which is just 1 ml. It's the included test solution here. Pull that right to the 1 mark. Oh gosh, I think I'm out of fluid. This is my last test. Yeah, gotta get a new. All right, so that's a lesson learned. That was my last test kit, so always keep an extra test in your storage. Luckily, I have another batch of reagent. So we'll pull up that 1 cc. There it is. As you can see, I'm pulling up the entire 1 ml, but because of the size of the cap, only the cap portion is filled with liquid. Some people get kind of confused on these tests with that application of the syringe, but as you can see there, that's completely normal not to see any liquid in the actual syringe itself. So we will pull out the cuvette. Once it says C2, we can go ahead and pull this out. I don't like to touch it or get it dirty with fingerprints. Again, just looking for that consistency in testing and kind of doing my best to keep things clean and same. We do 5 inversions per the instructions. A couple extra for good measure. Insert it, we'll close. Gives us an immediate result here. 7.7. So that's a decent result. I usually keep my alkalinity right around 8, so it might be just that I have a little bit more consumption going on. I can adjust my dosing accordingly, but not a big deal. I'm perfectly happy with 7.7. So that's the Hanna alkalinity checker. Next test here, guys, is the Hanna phosphate ULR. It's just ultra low reader. I keep my phosphates, or try to keep them under 0.1, so this application works for me. This again is another simple test. It takes about 5 to 6 minutes total just because of some of the mixing and wait times, but you're not doing too much. You get a sample from the tank, add some powder, mix it up, and wait for it to tell you what the results are. So I think Hanna did a good job with this one. So we'll get started here. First thing, we're gonna get, again, just like the alkalinity test, we're gonna get 10 milliliters from the tank. So I'll do that. Take our cuvette, fill it with the 10 milliliters. It always takes a control sample, so we'll put that bare 10 mLs into the sampler. Again, facing the 10 cc logo forward. Let that read. In the meantime, I open the packet. Once it says C2, it's ready for the next step. This is a packet with just one test worth of powder in it. Open that. Ooh. That was a close one. I think we spilled a little more powder in there. I'm gonna take that sample. Okay, now for this phosphate test, once you add the powder, it asks you to stir it very well for 2 minutes. All right, we shook it up for 2 minutes. I'm gonna put it in. And we'll start the timer by holding the button down. All right, so here's the countdown, coming down after 3 minutes. Let's see what the result on the phosphate is. .04. So I'm pretty happy with that. That's on the lower end of what mine usually is. It's usually 0.07 to 0.12, somewhere in there. So I'm okay with that. If I want to increase my phosphates in the tank, I just have to feed a little more, especially like coral type foods, like a little phosphate bump if you kind of load up on those. So next, guys, is what has become known as Hannah's least favorite checker test. That's the calcium test. However, I personally still really like it. So let's get started. You have that same 10cc cuvette. Now the difference here is that the calcium test needs a more diluted sample. So what we do is actually use 9 milliliters of RO water, and you later use a small sample of tank water. And so that makes it a little different than the alkalinity and the phosphate test that we showed before. I'm going to place our 9 milliliters of RODI water into the cuvette. You can see it falls short of their 10 ml marking there, which is fine. This test then calls for 1 ml of reagent out of this container here. And kind of the same as the alkalinity test, it's going to fill up the cap down there, but not the syringe. And this fluid is clear, a little more difficult to see. So we're going to add this 1 milliliter to our 9 milliliters of RO for the first sample. And that'll make up the 10 milliliters that we needed. Give that a couple inversions. So that is considered C1 on this test. So we'll insert the cuvette, then allow it to calibrate. While that's calibrating, I prepare the dry packet by opening it. You kind of get the feel for these things, how to make them work for you. You have to open them and then crease them, and it kind of pours itself out when you need it. And then again, this test takes a sample using this syringe, which takes up 0.1 mLs of tank water, and you use this plunger to do so. So I'm going to go get that sample now. Okay, once the tester reads C2, we can then add the other solutions. So first I'll use this plunger device, which I pulled up the tank water with. Add my sample there. I like adding the liquid first and then the powder. Just makes me feel better. And tap that in there, and then we're going to shake that for about 10-15 seconds to dissolve. So you just gotta do a good job on that. Alright, that should be fine. Go ahead and add that. This calcium test also gives an immediate result for this last stage. 399. Okay, so just shy of 400, so a little lower than I'd like, but nothing we can't adjust and just slowly and incrementally move back to about 420 to 450. Okay guys, next test we're going to look at here is another one of my favorites that I've been using for a long time is the Salifert magnesium test. The reason I like this test so much is because it's an easy titration test, and when you have the change in the color, you can tell right away, and it makes you feel better about the result that you're getting. So walk you through the steps here. First thing it requires is 2 milliliters of tank water. Okay, so they include a little syringe, so I'll go get that sample. Let's get all that going. All right, and then it has it numbered in steps. So you start with step 1, which is the dropper. I always like to clean the top. You do 5 drops. Okay. No mixing necessary. Included scooper. We're going to do step 2, which is a powder. I just shake it and get a nice even scoop there. Looks good. Again, the key is consistency, that you do it the same every time. You try to get the same amounts of each one every time. Okay, we're going to mix those two together. Get a purple liquid. Okay, put that there. And then we start the titration portion, and that's step 3. So we're going to use the included syringe. We're going to pull up 1 milliliter. Put the plunger all the way to the 1 milliliter mark. Okay, the little air bubble at the top is again normal, as in most of these test kits. Okay. We then start adding this solution dropwise to the test sample until it changes color to light blue. Again, it's really obvious. It takes most of this syringe to get up to the numbers we keep in a reef tank, which are typically, we want them between 1200 to 1400 loosely, somewhere in there. And so I'm gonna start adding solution. I go fast at first because I know it takes quite a bit. So we'll add about 0.7 just directly in. Okay, give that a little stir. Show with this hand. As you can see, the solution's still purple, so we know that obviously wasn't enough. And then I just add it 2 drops at a time. Sometimes 3 at the beginning when I know I'm going to need more. And just keep mixing it. And when it's ready, you'll see it. Get down quite a bit more here. It'll have a very faint change, and then at that point you'll know I just need to add 1 more drop. Like I see a faint change there, so I'm going to add 1 more drop, and we might get to the blue. Okay, that was just 1 gentle drop. Yeah. And there we are. So that's the light blue change there. Go ahead and set that down. And then you want to read on your syringe how much solution you have left. You can see on the syringe right there we have just above 0.1 milliliters. Okay? Now I look at the reference chart and I find that volume, which is right here, 0.1 milliliters. If I cross over, I get my test result, which is 1350. Okay, so that means my magnesium in my tank and system right now is sitting at 1350, which I consider pretty ideal. I do dose magnesium with a doser on a daily basis, just a small amount. I think for my 400-gallon system, it's about, I can't remember, maybe 17 or 18 mLs a day, but I don't change it very often because it's a pretty stable parameter, but I do check it every week with everything else, just in case. Okay guys, so the last test we're going to talk about today, or that I do on a regular basis every week, is nitrate. As you can see here, I have the Salifert nitrate test. Actually, historically, I've used the NIOS test kit. I just ran out a few weeks ago. I just like that color comparison a little better personally, but I went ahead and picked this one up just because I wanted to give it a try. It's something that I hadn't used before, so I used it last week and I'll use it again right now. But full disclosure, I do have the Hanna nitrate checker on the way. If you couldn't tell already from the past tests, I do like the Hanna checkers. So although I've heard that one's cumbersome, we're going to give it a shot when it gets here. Anyways, let's proceed with the Salifert nitrate kit. So first thing we do is we get the water sample, kind of like every other test kit. This one calls for 1 milliliter of water, so let me grab that from the tank. Sample vial. Next, we're going to use step 1. Clean the top. This test calls for 4 drops. Go ahead and provide those. Okay, 4 drops. Next is step 2, which is the powder step. We're going to get 1 level scoop. Okay, add that. And then it asks you to mix that for 30 seconds. Put the lid on. Give that a little mix. All right, so it's been 3 minutes. Let's try to get a top-down shot of that if we can. We're gonna try to compare this fluid. Now it looks a little darker than that to me. There's tough things about these test kits is it's various shades of pink. It looks just slightly darker than 10 to me, and significantly lighter than 25. What do you think?
I think so.
Okay.
Last time it was towards this one a little bit more.
Yeah, so maybe we could call it 15 nitrates, which I'm okay with. Again, that's a little higher than I'd like to have them. Maybe 5 to 10 I'd be a little more comfortable with, but that just means 2. But 15 is perfectly fine for a mature reef, so I'm happy with that. So that concludes testing for today. I showed you guys all the major tests I do on the reef tank every week, and I just want to remind you guys a few things. Is to, 1, test at least weekly if you can, so that you can see trends in your tank. And another thing is that if you get an abnormal result or something that makes you worry, try to retest or confirm that result in some way before you react to it and make a change. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes people make, is reacting immediately to a test result before confirming it. And you can just get yourself into a lot of trouble kind of chasing those numbers. So look after your tank regularly, test regularly, know your trends, and then if something's going wrong, make sure you're testing multiple times to be sure of what the problem is. So I hope you guys enjoyed seeing the testing that I do on the tanks. What I'm going to do is show you guys some top-down video of the display and frag tank, and just kind of show you some of the coral growth and coloration you can get if you have similar test results to what I just got. So thank you guys, and we'll see you on the next one.